Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my weekly Node-RED stream. So this is my weekly hour or so where I spend some time developing Node-RED. So this isn't how you use Node-RED, this is how you can make a start actually developing the Node-RED code, how you might want to contribute. If you're watching live, please do say hi in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, do drop in a message. Let me know if you find it useful. And always good to see you guys in the chat. Now, normally I haven't got the Twitch dashboard up at the moment. I normally have another screen off over here, which tells me how many people are watching, but I haven't got that one set up at the moment. So I only know if you're there if you say hi in the chat. So please do. So what have we been up to? Well, I was off last week. It was school vacation last week, and we actually managed to get a few days away and go and see some family who we've not seen at all this year because of events. And it looks like we managed to squeeze that trip in just in time, as we here in the UK are about to enter in another month's long lockdown, which is, that's a whole different rant. It's good it's happening. It should have happened much earlier, but let's move on. So I'm going to be streaming every Monday, 8 p.m. Oh, the other advantage of not streaming last week is it's actually because of daylight savings coming to an end in the UK. Now the US has caught up, so everyone is, in theory, all the time zones that do change daylight savings have now done it, I think. So times should be synced up again. So yeah, every Monday, 8 p.m, I'll try and stream something of interest on Node-RED. So what am I up to at the moment? Well, actually at the moment, there's the NodeConf remote conference happening all this week, and I'm running a Node-RED workshop at that on Wednesday around dashboard, TensorFlow, some fun stuff there. It's fully booked, and there's a huge waiting list just because as an event, I think they've had a few hundred sign-ups, but we could only fit 50 into the workshop. But the workshop material, if you know where to look, you'll find it on GitHub already, but as it's still being written. But yeah, it's quite fun creating the workshop. It's a lot of work, but certainly something I want to try and do more of, and have more of these online sort of self-service, slightly deeper, more interesting guides to doing stuff. But anyway, so I've been doing that, getting that ready. Less so any actual Node-RED development work, but we've got to keep that ball rolling. And we've got we did the 1.2.2 release, I guess about 10 days ago now, was it? So that's out there. We've had one more fix go in since then, which we kind of want to get released. So I'm going to try and get the 1.2.3 release done tonight. But before we do that, I want to spend a bit of time looking at adding some additional error handling into the editor. I will say there's part of me that hopes we get to a 1.2.4 release soon, because having our current version being version 1.2.3, I don't know, it just sounds odd. So that's what we're going to do. So one of the things we added in a recent release was the loading screen when you open the editor. So let's go find that. There we go. You can see my screen. Let's go find Node-RED. Yeah, so we added this progress bar, and I mean that's quite nice because it hides sort of the progressive loading of the editor, and actually gives some feedback as to what's going on. Now there's been the odd instance where that screen has got stuck on the adding flows to Workspace stage. And now that's usually been related, there's there's a number of reasons why it could get stuck at that point. But the reality is we shouldn't get stuck at that point. We should have some good error handling, that if there's something wrong with the flows we're loading, we don't just hang, with the only clues being in the JavaScript console of the browser, because that's not very friendly to end users. It doesn't help them give us the feedback about something that's gone wrong, and it doesn't help them fix it themselves. It makes it harder for us to help them. So there was an instance of this reported in the forum over the last few days. I forget what module it was, but it looked like that module had added a config node into the flow, which only had a type and a name property. So it was a config node. So it didn't have X and Y, which is its physical position in the workspace, but it just had type and name, I think. And it seemed to be that that was the one that it was failing on. So that suggests we must have some code in the editor that's assuming all the properties are on the node object that we expect, and we haven't got the right guards in place to handle scenarios. Now, handle scenarios when they're missing. Now, one of the reasons we've done that is traditionally the only thing that generates Node-RED flows is the Node-RED editor. So we could, so any assumptions we made, we could base on the knowledge of what we know the editor generates. But of course, some people generate their own flows programmatically. So that's one avenue that these things could creep in. Maybe they're generating a node that doesn't quite look like how the editor generates it, but it's kind of still valid. Maybe it's a node that automatically adds a config node, and might be sort of hard coding it in. So Node-RED dashboard is an example of that. Whenever you open the dashboard sidebar, if you have any dashboard nodes or any customization of the dashboard, it secretly, well, not so secretly, it adds its own config node into your environment without you doing anything. And again, that might be another avenue because it's not going through kind of the normal editor process, that it's something invalid slips in. Now, I'm not here to go debug that particular node and find out what it's doing. I think it's sufficient to say it's doing something, and even if it's invalid, we should catch it and report it to the user rather than just hang. So yeah, ideally, I don't know exactly what end result we're going to get, but at the very least, we need to give the user enough feedback so that they could quickly identify the problem, or maybe the node at fault, so that they can go and bug that node developer. You're right, Bald Geek. We would, you would hope these things don't, the node wouldn't get published with that sort of error in. So maybe there's some subtlety to what's going on. But and of course, when I say subtlety going on, I've got my theory as to what can cause it to crash. So we're now going to try and provoke it. If we can't provoke it, then my whole plan for this evening's live stream is upturned. But let's try it. So what we're going to do is, here I've got Node-RED running. Let's make it big. Now, where were we running? So here's my flow file. And we're just going to go manually edit the flow file. And at the moment it's empty. It's just got the one tab in it. And what I'm going to do is in fact, rather than try and guess, let's just go and look up exactly what it said on the forum, because I want to make sure I'm remembering it right. Oh man, so where was it? It was. Here is how busy our forum gets until you want to find a post that you remember from like 24 hours ago, and you've got to go a long way. Right. So this was the flow. This was the node that was being added, a Victron client. An ID of Victron client ID. So that instantly tells me this has been hard coded in by the node. It's not been generated because it's not the normal hex string we would expect from a node ID generated by the editor, and it's of type Victron client. Well, again, I'm not here to go single them out by any means. What we're going to do is, having copied that, paste it in. Just make sure I keep it valid JSON. And because I obviously don't have Victron client, and we're not here to go get told we're missing a type, I'm going to use my favorite config node and MQTT broker. So that's as near as we can for the moment. That's the flow that was causing things to hang. So let's see if we can reproduce that. So we use grunt dev, which is building the code and running, starting up. You'll see some extra log messages in my log because I've got the TensorFlow stuff installed. Don't worry about those. So now let's get the developer console open. Let's reload. Loading nodes, adding flows to Workspace, and it's installed fine. Curious. Okay. Now what? You had an extra... Oh, did I? Yes, thank you. The log did tell me existing flow file was not valid JSON. Thank you. Right, rather than vi it, I should know vi well enough to know there must be some JSON formatter to take care of things. But prettify that. Yeah, there we go. Valid JSON. Thank you for pointing that out. Grunt dev. There we are. Okay, so what is interesting here is we've got a runtime error. Type error cannot read property index of undefined. Now I think that may be coming out of the MQTT broker node but rather than the core runtime. But we should double check that. And now let's go reload the editor. And it has loaded. And the node is there. Curious. Okay. Now, kind of what I didn't want to do is go install the Victron node. See, I was expecting that to fail. I was thinking it was going to be as simple as having a node which just has ID and type was causing something to break. Let's let's go install Victron Energy and just see what it's doing. And like I said, this isn't about going to fix the Victron node. Oh. There we go. Thank you, Alexa. No, cancel. Something I discovered the other day is you can't turn Alexa off remotely. You can't turn the microphone off via the app. My wife was sat where I am doing online education thing she was teaching, and one of the participants was called Alexis. No, was actually called Alexa, sorry. And every time, well, kept triggering Alexa every time they referred to her. And I got a call, can you disable her? And I can't without climbing under the desk. And I expected on the app to have some sort of disable button. But anyway. So I've installed the Victron. Let's see. Let me run. I'm running grunt dev. It takes slightly longer because it does the uglified build every time. Just because at some point I'm expecting to start editing code and I want it primed to do the rebuild. But let's see. Let's see what's what. Okay, so we reload. Now this is interesting. Now I do the reload. We get an error. And sure enough, adding flows to Workspace, we get an error, which is really interesting. Why do we get... So this is... Okay, let me zoom up so you can hopefully see a bit more of this error. So the error it's actually hitting... Okay, I've zoomed so much I've lost the error. This existing nodes... So this is an error we introduced in, as in this bit of code we introduced in 1.2. And this is to do with the importing duplicate nodes. So for some reason we're getting here, and it's the existing nodes is. I mean, this is intriguing. Why? So we're importing. Okay. I have a suspicion. Right. Right. I have a suspicion we are going to have to go look at the Victron node code if we can to confirm it. Let me talk it through. If I can find it in editor client nodes. And we're looking for, what's going on? Right, existing nodes dot length. Right. What's going on? We are in the import function. So this is the function that gets called whenever we're importing nodes into the workspace, both when we do the initial load, plus whenever you're importing, copying and pasting, all that sort of stuff. And what we do is when we're doing the import, if we're not generating new IDs, because we're not importing a copy, we're trying to import as is, and we haven't got the import map, and the import map is, again, I realize you probably can't see this. Import map is how we deal with the new dialog where the user can select what they want to have a clone of, a replacement of, or whatever. So we're not generating new IDs, we haven't got a conflict resolution map. Then if we've already seen a node with the ID of the node in this array, then we stick it on the existing nodes array. And then at this point we say, well, if we already have a node with that ID. That begs the question, we're doing the very initial load of my flow configuration. We only have two nodes, one with an ID of D60, well, this one, and one with this suspicious hard-coded Victron client ID. Now, the errors only happen now we've installed the Victron node. What I'm betting is the Victron node is clearly adding this config node of its own accord. And I bet it's adding that config node when the node is added to the palette. So regardless of whether you're using their node or not, it's adding in their config node as almost like a placeholder. And because it happens at that point in time, when we then come to load the flows, we get this conflict because we are importing a node that already exists. Okay. So that's interesting. So it is kind of dodgy what they're doing. There's no doubt about that. And I suspect I will, after we're done tonight, I will go raise an issue if one hasn't already been raised against them with that analysis, because they may be scratching their heads, because it's only failing now because of this new check we've added because before, when we're doing that initial import, we never checked, did we? Yeah, I don't think we had a check when we're doing the initial import for duplicates. Okay. So it's the fact we're doing the initial import. Now we could go one route, which is, I believe we know in here that this is the initial import. If I just scroll up. No. Scanning through. Yes. Okay. We do know whether this is the initial load or not, albeit slightly further down in the file. So one option would be, if it's the initial load, should we just ignore any of the duplicate node logic? The rationale being, we're doing the initial load. If there's a duplicate node, it's either already in your flow file or there's some node doing something a bit shady, like this one is. Now that would be a fix for free for the Victron node. Well, I still think what their node is doing is not ideal. They shouldn't be adding a config node unilaterally until the user has added in a Victron node into their flow. Yeah, because you don't want their config nodes polluting your flow if you've just installed the node but you don't actually use it. Okay. So I think it's probably okay. So there's a couple things to do. There's a decision to make about this specific scenario and whether we should and how we should respond to it. There's a more general point, however, that in hitting an error, we are hanging the load into the workspace. So it would be better if we could report that error in a nicer way. At the moment, it just comes out as uncaught error. So for one thing, we could add in actually I'll have an error message. So if I say import conflict as the message of that error, I'm going to do a better job of that in a second. But now when I reload, at least now, rather than uncaught error with no message, we now at least get a message. Import conflict. And in fact, in this instance, I think we can do a better message. Now, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, it's one thing just to log a message into the console. If we're going to stray anywhere where we're going to present an error to the end user, we've got translations to worry about. So but let's come to that in a minute when we think that. But yeah, we'll come to that in a moment. Existing nodes dot length. So existing nodes is an array of the IDs. So what we're going to do, this may or may not be satisfactory, but we're going to do existing nodes. Yeah, nodes dot join. So that will give us a nice comma separated list of the IDs of the existing nodes. So at least with that change, when the user hit this error and we tell them to go look in the console, there's now a much better clue as to what the error is. Not so much an end user who's innocently using that node or try to use that node wouldn't necessarily know how to fix it, but at least they would know. It would give them a pointer in the right direction. That said, it will give them a pointer in the right direction because the ID happens to be have the word Victron in. If it was a random hex ID, that would be far more meaningless. So what we can do is let's just think this through. How else do we use existing nodes? Let me just check. Okay, so at the moment, existing nodes, we use it purely in this array to check the length. Are there any or not? And at the moment, it's just the array of IDs. It would be more useful to have a bit more information about the existing nodes. So what we can do is, let's do it this way. So rather than just do the if statement, which looks at all the internal data structures for the different types of thing that might conflict, let's set local variable existing to that object, and then we can say if existing. What we can push is then we can push that whole existing object onto this array. And in fact, this is probably above and beyond. If we push an object which has existing and let's say imported, and what is it? It's n. So now existing nodes is going to be an array. It's got the existing node and it's got the imported one. So when we come down here to generate a message, in fact, what we can do is just for what's this? One sec, to quickly distract myself. What does identify import conflicts do? Okay, so that sort of does a bigger, deeper dive of finds everything that is conflicting, and that's all part of trying to resolve the conflicts. Not gonna worry about that for the moment. Although what I'm about to do, I might be able to generate from that anyway. But if we do existing nodes error message, and we are, rather than just join a list of those, we're going to do, so existing nodes is an array of the object with existing and imported objects. We're going to map that conflict. So we've got conflict.existing and we've got conflict. Did I call it conflict? Yeah, conflict. Imported. There's two objects. What we're going to do is return a string where we've got, the interesting thing is the ID, because it's the ID that's causing the conflict. We could take that from the existing one because they're the same ID by definition. And then add in its type of the and then at the moment this is going to be a Ooh. Now the assumption is they're going to be the same type, but for the real freaky edge case where the types are different, because yeah, it can happen. Well, never has, but for the few extra characters of having the code in place now, we'll be glad for having it in place when it does freakishly happen. So we're just going to do a little conditional. If the imported type is not equal to the existing type, then we are going to add in the information about the imported type, because it's different. Otherwise, otherwise empty string, close that conditional. Is that still got errors? Do I not need? Oh yeah, I don't need that. Except I do want a closing bracket because I need all of this in there because I've got to close the square bracket I had in the error message. So yeah, so we've mapped from that array of objects with both in. Now we're going to join it. Blah blah blah. Existing nodes error message. Yeah, that all looks plausible. So now when we reload, in fact, yes. So import conflict, Victron client ID, and because in the flow I've set up to poison it, I set the type to MQT broker. There we go. So it's giving us the ID and then the types of the existing one and then the imported one. So for this edge case, that gives us a lot more to go on if this were to happen. Now, what we should now do, so that's a more meaningful error, and should that happen unexpectedly when we don't handle this error naturally, at least there's a better error to be had. So the other part is the fact that the screen hangs on adding flows to Workspace. Is this making sense to everyone? Yeah, hope so. So let's go and remind ourselves where do we actually load things into the Workspace. So I think it is in red.js as the main entry point to the editor. Load node list. Well, what was it? Adding flows to Workspace. In fact, if we just go through, so find wherever we report progress. So that's load nodes, load flows. So this is the one we're at. It's 80% load flows. So that's where we are here. So we've done the HTTP request. In fact, import flows. Yeah, so load flows is the HTTP request to load them. Import flows is then the adding flows to Workspace event at 90%. And here we have the call to red.nodes.import nodes.flows. Now, this is going to be interesting because I say it's going to be interesting. This error is being thrown back in the import code. We're doing all of this validation before we even start to actually add nodes into the internal state. So there's no worry here that if we were to bail out at this point, we would have half loaded flows. The error is being thrown early enough that we don't have flows at all. So what we can do is stick a try catch on it. And what we can try is, just for the moment, is just do a red.notify of that error message. See what happens. There we are. So rather than hanging, okay, the workspace is blank, and okay, the notification has disappeared because I've used the default settings for the notify. But I kind of feel getting to this point with a clear error message is much more user-friendly than being stuck in the developer console. It's going to be true that we're not going to be able to help them recover that error specifically, but at least it gets them the error, and then they can come to the forum for some help. And again, this is going to be edge cases with particular things doing things they shouldn't. But that's what we're here for, to catch those cases. So let's go do red.notify properly. Where does red.notify live? I'm staring at the list. I'm going there, notifications. So red.notifications deals with the toast pop-up we have. And it has red.notify, scroll back and forth. It is kind of, sort of documented. Normally, it's the sort of thing I just go and crib from the source code. But what we want is, type fixed true type error is what we want, I think. So we want fixed true type error. Actually, is fixed right? I think fixed might be... Yeah, see, I can't... Clicking on the... Well, you can't tell. But I'm clicking on it and it's not dismissing. It's a fixed error. Okay, so that's better. But now if we're going to get into the game of displaying an error here, we should add a message. Add a message to the catalog. Now, in good faith, adding a message to the catalog will mean I won't do the 123 release tonight, because we'll want to get it translated for the Japanese catalog at the least, which we can get done overnight by our friends in Hitachi. They're always very responsive to getting Japanese, and sometimes the Chinese, that they have contacts that they can help get the Chinese ones done. We try to keep the Japanese translations up to date as much and as proactively as we can. Partly because we know we've got a good community of, a huge community of users in Japan, so we know we can call on them to help provide translations in a nice, timely way. So, what we're going to do is, now which way round should we do it? Error.toString is kind of okay, I think. No, what we're going to do is go and find the message catalog. That's what we should do first. We're going to go look up enus editor.json. And here we have the huge message catalog for the editor. And let's go find adding flows to Workspace. No? What's the message then? Event.import flows. No. Oh, adding flow. Oh, well, I've got case sensitive search on, and I don't think I did a capital F. So these are the events for when we're loading up the editor. And we're going to add in an import error. And this is going to be error adding flows, semicolon, underscore message. Is that what we want? We are going to put this first line in p tags. I think this is, yeah, we'll faff with this. Now for, oh, what's this dbus error? Oh, I bet that's the Victron stuff playing up because I've got it installed. Whenever we edit a message catalog, I've got to restart grunt because I think, do I? I think I do. Because we need to restart Node-RED to get it to reload the catalog, and I don't think our grunt task does that when we edit message catalogs. And I'm otherwise just editing editor code, which doesn't restart Node-RED, it just rebuilds it, rebuilds the editor. So we did an import, we called it import error. So now rather than just doing er.toString, we're going to do red underscore, which is the utility function for looking up message catalog strings. And we gave it a placeholder, I think I called it message. Yep. So that's the underscore message underscore is a placeholder. So here we're passing the dot underscore function an object as a second argument with message, and that's going to get inserted. .toString, in which case we can get rid of it there. Just fix up the. Is that all looking good? That's all looking good. So, what does that look like now when we fire it up? There we go. So, error adding flows. We've still got this superfluous error, and that's just because the default errors toString does that. We're gonna, yeah, that should be fine. Rather than doing toString, just go straight to the message. Okay, so that's getting better from a reporting standpoint. Now that yeah, I think we can improve the quality of that error message now that it's not just something to the console that we expect them to share with us on the forum. We are going to improve the message. And again, strictly speaking, this needs to be translated. For the life of me, I can't think. Where are we? Just seeing if we've got. I'm looking at the other calls into the message catalog from this file just to see what sort of namespace we've got. What sort of namespace we use in this file, and it's all in clipboard because it's to do with import of nodes, which kind of makes sense. So let's go find clipboard. So import unrecognized type or types, because you've got to deal with pluralization. Import duplicate. Just make sure I've not. Yeah, that's unique. Imported duplicate node. Yeah, and then if we do, I think this is how it works. The NLS, the message catalog stuff, can automatically do pluralizations. No, I mean, yes, it adds more to the catalog, but it's those little things that, well, yeah, it's these little things that the small details. Where are we? So here's where we're going to build up this message. And what did I call it? Import duplicate. So our message is going to be red dot. Oops. Right, error message. Red clipboard dot import duplicate count existing nodes dot length. So the fact if count is 1, then it will use clipboard import duplicate. If count is greater than 1, it will use clipboard import duplicate underscore plural. Yeah. So that's the start of the error message. So why don't we just stick that on there for the moment. And because I've edited the catalog, I've got to restart. Let's see, reload. I should have started by now. Yeah, imported duplicate node, so it's done the pluralization okay in this instance, but still not looking as pretty as it could. What we're going to do, we are going to we are going to sorry, I'm just going quiet as I think like 3 or 4 steps ahead. We're going to, like we do when you import missing nodes, we're going to give a better formatted list of them. And I was about to just hard code some HTML and do string concatenation. So, okay, quick detour. I'm going to show you how we shouldn't do it. What we can do is we are going to build up using the HTML lists. Okay, so that is going to produce a set of HTML list items for all of those existing nodes, which is good. Then what we'll do down here is put in the HTML wrapper for that list. Yeah, and this is all looking quite plausible, quite innocent. And we reload that. So now it's a bulleted list. Doesn't that look good? What could possibly go wrong? Let me show you what could go wrong. For the sake of demonstration, let's say we decide, oh, let's display the node's name property of the newly imported one. So we're going to add in conflict.imported.name. Okay. And then I'm just going to go edit our flow and say set its name to hello Twitch. And then I'm going to kick it off again. So, at the moment, what I've written looks entirely reasonable. Build up an HTML list. It's showing the ID, the name, the types. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, well, that's all looking healthy. So now when we reload, and there you go, you've got hello Twitch. Oh, that's brilliant. That's nice and user friendly. Okay, now let me show you what can go very, very wrong with that piece of code. Let's say someone gets you to import or load a flow that does this. So they've given their node a perfectly valid name, but it contains some HTML. I'm just double checking to make sure I've got the syntax right. So now when we run, and we wait for Ugfly to run, and that goes, started, and now we reload. And look at that. Rather than our notification, we now have an alert saying, ha ha ha, I have taken over Node-RED. So absolute classic sort of cross-site scripting injection, because we've trusted the content we're loading and displaying it completely unsanitized. Absolute classical way of inserting whatever JavaScript you would want to be evaluated in the page. Now, obviously this is quite disruptive, but it'd be much more malicious to do something much less overt. But that is a real security issue. And believe me, over the years, we've had the odd one crop up in Node-RED. If you think the number of places where we display node IDs, node names, there have been quite a few places where, again, historically, we didn't sanitize the input properly. I can tell you there are none we know of now. We've had over the years, I think 2 or 3 responsibly disclosed vulnerabilities of this sort. Now, it's a long jump from this to being a genuine security issue, but the principle is there. You need to sanitize your inputs. So that's a long way of saying we need to do a better job of building this HTML list. So thankfully, there's much safer ways of doing it. And for this instance, we're just going to use some jQuery. So we're going to build up the node list. We're going to, rather than do it using the map, we're going to do existing nodes for each. Oh no, we called it conflict, didn't we? This one. So for each conflict, we're going to create a list item. And we're going to take exactly the same string, and then we are going to use the text function that jQuery provides, which basically says treat everything inside that as text. And when you add it to the item set, it's text content, not its HTML content. and that prevents it being treated as HTML. So we create that, and then we want to append that to the node list, and we get rid of all that, and then we can now this is the bit I can never remember. How do we extract? Because we need to, in a safe way, get back. Oh, how do we get that back? I mean, this is where I normally just go double check on Stack Overflow, but we're just going to create a wrapper element, append node list to it, and then we are going to take wrapper dot that's safe, wrapper.html. Is that right? Oh, I haven't done this for a while. Let's see. Yeah, that's done it. So there you can now see the name is now being presented as is, and it's not been evaluated. Good. Okay. One thing we are going to do, something I saw the other day was a user sent me their flows because I was helping them debug something, and they had hundreds of nodes and dozens of modules I didn't have. And when you import a module you don't have, we do the toast notification with a list of unrecognized node types. And because there was 30 or 40, the notification pushed off the bottom of the page, off the bottom of the screen, and it looked rubbish. So what we are going to do is, I could conceive of a scenario that a user has 100 nodes and they trigger this path somehow, and it's a list of like 100 duplicates. So we don't want to create a super long list. It just needs to be enough. So rather than doing for each that just blindly adds them all, we can do existing nodes count is going to be, we'll do a maximum of 5. No, sorry. Yeah, we're going to do a maximum of 5. So we want to take the minimum of existing nodes.length and 5. And then do a for loop of existing nodes count. And so rather than doing the for each, we just take have I made this too big so you can't see? Well, yeah, some people do have big monitors that can take long lists, but yeah. But yeah, we can do better. And it's these little improvements that just take some of the rough edges off the user experience, which is kind of important. What we can say here is if existing nodes count is not equal to existing nodes.length, in other words, we have truncated the list, then we can just add a indication. An indication that there are more. In fact, I know there are places where, yeah, plus n more. So where are we here? We're in deploy confirm plus n more. Let's see, do we use that? Yeah, see, plus more. Where are we here? This is one of the problem. We've got these duplicate. So we're in palette editor more. We've got these duplicate messages because I've tried to keep them sort of contextual in the catalog, but there's no reason to have exactly the same translation in two different places. So I'm not about to add a third. We're going to reuse, where are we? Deploy confirm plus n more. Deploy confirm plus n more, and it takes a count of, and it's however many more there are, so that's going to be the true length minus how many we've just talked about. Append that to node list. Good. Okay. In fact, what we can do to try and test that, I'm going to get rid of this long script. We've proven that's working now. We are going to add in and I realise I've pasted all those with missing semicolons, so missing commas. Oops. So let's fix that up. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lost count. Scrolled and missed it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So we're going to have 7 duplicates. Oh, it's 9:05 already. Yeah, no chance of doing a release tonight now, because yeah, I'm not doing it tonight. We'll do it in the morning. But so yeah, watch out for 1, 2, 3 on Tuesday morning. Right, let's see what's up now when we I've just reload the chat. Awesome. Ooh. We only got one because we only got one. Because they've all got the same ID and there's already code. By the time we reach that point, we've already wheedled out duplicate node IDs in the same flow file. Okay. That experiment's over. But yeah, no, that's going to work. Okay. So that's a better error message. We've sanitized the input so it's safe, which is good. Yeah, but we can still improve the formatting because, yeah, that was something cobbled together quite quickly. So, what does it say? Imported duplicate node is going to give the ID, and then I'm going to take out the name. I just did that for the sake of showing the script injection. Then existing type, and yeah, I'm just trying to just put a bit of white space in to give it space to breathe. Let's see, does that look any better? And again, it's only in this instance that we've got, we're importing a different type with the same ID that we're showing both. Not ordinarily it'd just be the one. In fact, I think rather than square brackets, no, I can't remember, somewhere else where I think we display node ID and its type. I can't remember if we certainly use square brackets in the log. Maybe it's the link node, someone else. Anyway, that's better. That's a better message. That's going to help the user do something that's not buried in the development log. And yeah, we'll feel better about that. Cool. So yeah, have we covered everything? So, no need to use closing li. No, so jQuery is good enough. jQuery is good enough that if you just give it the opening tag, it will automatically close it. I seem to remember if I was to do something like if I was to give this some attributes, blah, in there, then I seem to remember you have to close it then. But I might be wrong about that. That's how I do it. If I'm just doing the opening tag, then go for it. If I'm doing something with attributes, then I always do the closing tag. Habit. I seem to remember it not working properly if you don't. Cool. So that's a better error. One thing I want to verify is, we do all this work. I want to make sure we don't break. So this error can happen for good reasons as well as bad. All the new logic we added in 1.2 to handle importing duplicates. There is a code path where that error is going to get thrown, and we don't want to trigger the notification we've just been creating. So let's reload, having taken out the having taken out that node, we're good. And actually, interestingly, if I now go to configuration nodes, and there we have the Victron Energy client just inserted. So yeah, that's naughty. There are better ways for them to be doing that, which I can talk to them about. So here we have some nodes. If I export and then just import as is, some of the nodes you're importing already exist in your workspace. So the error we've been mucking around with the error message of has still been thrown, but it's been caught and triggered this workflow, which all still works and nothing untoward happens. So good. I'm happy. We are happy. Life is good. It is 9:10. Let's get this committed. Let's get this committed. So what did we change? We added an error message, although in here, in fact, yes, we added the error adding flows message, and then the specific example, the imported duplicates. So those are updates I will send to our colleagues to get translated. We added our logic that, come on, Tig, don't give me half and half, you give me, okay. Can I get it to, that's a little better. Where are we? So rather than just building up a list of the IDs, we build up a list of objects of the existing and the duplicate import. And then we do all this work to build up the proper error message for the error we're about to throw. And that's good. Just scanning through. Yeah. Yeah, I'll live with that. Cool. So we'll stick with that. And then in red.js, we added a try catch around the import code, which reports the error. And it's a fixed error, So they can't dismiss it because they kind of have to figure something out from that themselves. Whether there's something we could do to help them fix that for themselves, maybe, but it's kind of at that point something bad's happened, and trying to unstitch is not necessarily a job we could do ourselves because we don't know what the intended behavior is. Right, that's all good. Commit message, think handle import errors on initial load and report to user. Good. Okay, so let's push that. Oh, I think we've had some other stuff come in. So git pull --+ rebase and push again. Excellent. Okay, git changelog, custom command I've got. So in fact, these are all the commits that have gone in since the last release. So there's the stuff we did tonight. I've modified our default settings file. So I've actually removed the Apache license from the top of the default settings file because someone asked the question, is our default settings file really under that license? And I guess technically not, because we expect the user to modify it and we don't lay any claim to it. It's some default settings that they're going to work with. Add mutex lock save setting. Yeah, so that's the more important issue. If you disable a node module via our API, which has lots of individual nodes in, like dashboard, you would hit an error because we didn't have a proper mutex lock. So it would try saving your settings multiple times in parallel rather than just doing it one at a time. And yeah, and some other interesting stuff, including the migration to NYC instead of Istanbul, which is what I did 2 weeks ago. Interesting commit to master and not to a branch. Yeah, I when it's fixes like that, tend to push to master when it's me, but when it's something, a fix like that, when I've spent the last hour and a quarter talking it through, I feel that's pretty well inspected and rationalized about. Some of these other ones, I have started doing pull requests a bit more often for things that need a second pair of eyes for sure, and do need, but also when there's a change that needs flagging up, even if it's a small fix, if there's something about it that just needs flagging up, that, for example, in the changelog that I want to be able to refer to, then it depends on the change. I think it's the fair point. Certainly if it was any new functionality, new feature, then it would be in a branch, targeting the dev branch. Master is only for fixes. Master is the stable branch. We have our dev branch, which is when new features going in for the next milestone release, 1.3. But right now, no one's working on 1.3 because, busy doing everything else at the moment. So in terms of just the mechanics of doing a release, we'll get the translations overnight, hopefully from Hitachi. I'll ping them when we're done here. But I take that changelog, I go find our changelog. Oops. And then, this is the sort of the drudgery of doing a release, is just the working through all the paperwork. So I'm not going to do all this right this second, but make a start on this stuff. See, I've already screwed it up. What was that? That was the settings file one. And I'd probably spend a bit too much time fixing this stuff, manually doing this stuff. I try to automate a lot of it, but not all of it. Yeah, it is time for a cup of tea, everyone. So thank you very much for joining. I hope that was interesting. It was a good one this week, actually, because it was one I knew the problem. Didn't know exactly how we would end up addressing it. So I hope that was interesting. Like I said, do leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, if you've got this far. It's what, an hour and 20 minutes in. Keep an eye out for 123, which will come out tomorrow. And otherwise, stay safe. Do what you need to do. And I will be back this time next Monday. Hopefully, all being well. Great. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.